Good evening, Arkansas Razorback fans. We are back with another episode of Hawgs on the Hill. Welcome to episode 16, your go-to podcast for an in-depth dive into all things Arkansas Razorbacks. Join us as we dissect the victories, analyze the plays, and revel in the spirit of the Hawgs. Episode 16 is brought to you by our friends over at Homefield. Step into the legacy of collegiate style with Homefield's premium vintage apparel. Embrace the spirit of your alma mater or even your favorite team with their meticulously crafted, comfortable, and stylish collections they have. Elevate your game day attire and celebrate the rich history of college sports. Homefield, where tradition meets comfort in every stitch. And you can use promo code Variety Sports in all caps to receive 15% off that first order for you guys. You go over there, check them out. They've got some fantastic Razorback gear. They got some throwback shirts and hoodies, and they've got even quarter zips with the baseball, old English A on it. They've got a variety of things over there. They have the platinum box you can get. They just released a new coach's windbreaker, kind of a throwback windbreaker that looks pretty sweet.
That thing's really cool, yeah.
So they've got a lot of things going on over there, constantly releasing new items. So go check them out, and you can use that promo code thanks to Variety Sports Network. It's Variety Sports in all caps to get 15% off that first order. And we missed you last week on the recap, but we'll get your quick opinions. Razorbacks win 70-0 over UAPB in Little Rock. Any standout things for you? I mean, there wasn't a lot of takeaways on it, with it being an FCS team and things like that. But other than that, was there anything particular that you wanted to touch on?
Well, two things I want to hit on real quick before we move on. So I'll be brief, but the quarterback play I thought was outstanding all the way down the depth chart. Obviously, Taylor Green had a very good game. He had some jitters at the beginning, kind of got over that fairly quickly in the second or third possession, and seemed like he was really settling in and seeing receivers well. And let's be real, I mean, we were getting open every play. We were like 10 for 10 on third downs. I mean, it was kind of like playing video games out there, if you will, on freshman mode. So quarterback play was great. Even when Singleton and KJ Jackson came in, I mean, I thought there was a good showing from everybody. I thought everybody looked well. They were seeing the field well, executing quickly, not spending too much time in the pocket, throwing the ball quickly, things like that. So quarterback play looked really good to me. You can tell that Petrino has been coaching these guys up. And then on the other side of the ball, the defense. I thought the defense played surprisingly well, even deep into our roster, if you will. Late in the game, UAPB had a couple of big plays here and there, nothing wild, but we were able to kind of snuff them out time and time again when they, crossed the 50 handful of times. There was a couple plays that they should have hit if they had a receiver catch a ball or their quarterback overthrew a guy here and there. So there's a couple big plays that could have happened. But only one or two of those really in my mind. So overall, I felt like we did a good job keeping everything in front of us on defense, getting several tackles for loss, sacks, things like that. We were very disruptive in the backfield, which we should have been. And so I was pleased to see that, and a little bit surprised to see that we put up a 0. I know they're an FCS opponent. I know it's not going to be, what we're going to see week in, week out, and you should shut them out, but we know how football goes. There was one play, that I think that kid got called for offensive pass interference. That really could have been a big play for them, likely a touchdown. That one got called back, or wasn't a catch, and then got called back, if I remember correctly.
I know the one you're talking about. Their quarterback actually stepped out of bounds.
That's what it was. Excuse me. Yeah, that is correct. So I was thinking one or two plays like that. We had talked about it in the preview show would happen, and they might put up, 7 to 10 points off of some busted plays, kind of like that. Luckily, those didn't really happen. The couple of times it could have happened, it didn't materialize. So that was cool to pitch a shutout and then drop a 70-piece. So overall, a great win. Not a whole lot more you can say to it. You can overanalyze it or underanalyze it, depending on how you look at it. But I thought the quarterback play was good. I thought the defensive play was good. And I thought that we did a good job not having too many penalties. There wasn't a lot of pre-snap penalties, especially on the offensive line for, illegal motions, illegal formations, false starts, things like that. I thought we did a great job playing cleanly, especially on the offensive side of the ball. We had a couple dinky things here and there, but nothing wild. So overall, I thought it was a really good game that we came out and executed for 4 quarters, with multiple different position groups on the field, with multiple different guys on the roster getting time.
Yeah, I agree 100% there. Like you said, You can't take a whole lot from this game. My big takeaway from this is, like you said, regardless of UAPB being a FCS team, I still think the fact that we are able to go 10 for 10 on drives and score every time we touch the ball was something that you can take out of this, because regardless, most teams would be able to somehow get a stop, especially late in the game when we had our second and third string guys in. But no, we were able to still convert and push the ball down the field, and we saw them not take the foot off the gas, if you will. And that's what I wanted to see. It's like we talked about. They had a clean game, no turnovers, not really any sloppy play. That first drive of the game was a little difficult. Maybe some first game jitters where, you saw a couple not great passes from Taylor. You saw Jaquindon fumble the ball out of bounds. But other than that, they got things cleaned up real quick. And so I think, once they got those jitters out of the way, they were all good to go. And we kind of saw that happening as they kind of just settled in and, did what they came to do and took care of business. So, that was great to see. You love to see, a good opening weekend like that, like win like you're supposed to win as we get prepped for this big time matchup this week, a non-conference opponent that could, be a great measuring stick for Arkansas. And we'll talk about that game in a little bit, where we actually have Calvin from the CGA tour joining us in Oklahoma State podcast. He's going to come and join us and help us break down and talk about this matchup and kind of some things from his perspective about Arkansas, maybe from just what he's seeing in matchups and things like that. But as we move on and kind of get through some notes and stuff, updates for Arkansas Razorback recruiting, football gained another big-time commitment with 4-star defensive lineman Kevin Otis committing to Arkansas. He is a 6'3", 285 defensive lineman from Hattiesburg, Mississippi, choosing Arkansas over his home state schools in Mississippi State, Ole Miss, and also over Florida and Texas A&M. So another big get for this defense and Coach Deke Adams. I mean, between him and Travis Williams locking down some of these big-time recruits, the second 4-star on the defensive line, not to mention, or actually third, between Kevin Otis, Colton Yarbrough, and Reginald Vaughn. Yarbrough will be in the 2026 class, but the fact that we're able to go and get this high quality talent on defense has been very impressive, and we've seen what Coach T. Will's been able to do. I'm sure he's part of that as well, but the defensive line goes specifically to Deke Adams. But what do you think? This is continued improvement on this defensive side of the ball. Like we said, it's been great to see that, because we haven't really seen that in a few years. Your thoughts on this commitment that came after a nice big win to open the season?
It just seems like the chips are kind of falling into place for this defensive line to have strength for years to come. Kind of get back to the Trey Flowers, Dietrich Wise type, defensive lines that we've had in years past that really were able to dominate. You have 2 or 3, maybe 4 guys that can really get after the pass rush, but then also be run stoppers as well. So, we've had some really good players come through the university on the defensive line from time to time, and it's really nice when you can have more than one really standout lineman that can wreak havoc, So having a couple of these guys be able to come in and come into their own, hopefully with that 4-star status, and turn them into a 5-star caliber player with some good coaching and development and things like that. So this is all you can ask for. If we pick up a 5-star or 2, great, but you can really do a lot with some kids that have 4 stars that are hungry, maybe be a little bit underrated, come in and really want to prove themselves. So I'm excited to see some of these kids that are committing with some of the other schools that they have significant offers from, choosing Arkansas, considering the year we had last year. I think people see, hey, we're trending in the right direction, even though we haven't played a ton of games yet. Everybody sees, kind of the stuff that swirls around social media, around our culture really improving. There's significant evidence of that. If you just search some of the guys' Instagram pages, some of our current players, it's wild, how much this team has improved culture-wise, I think. And I think a lot of people want to be a part of that and see that. And then if the other pieces fall into place correctly around like NIL packages and things like that, that can really be a recipe for success. And I think that's what you're seeing here with all these defensive commitments from guys that have a lot of potential to be NFL level players. You just named a couple of these guys on the defensive line, but then you got to think about like Tavian Wallace, another 4-star linebacker who's really projected to be quite good. He was super excited when we got that commitment from him. So there's we're trending in the right direction, if you will, from a defensive recruiting standpoint. I think the offense will catch up. I want to say we're probably trending better recruiting wise on defense currently than we are on offense. But Bobby Petrino's only been there a year so far, not even a full year. So give him a little bit of time. Everybody knows what he can do. So there's going to be people lining up to play for him, especially if this year goes at least decently.
Yeah, I was about to say, let him flash some of what he can do as far as the offense throughout the season, and he'll start drawing some interest from those recruits. But it's like that cheesy phrase. You're talking about kids that not necessarily getting the 5 stars, but you're getting these 3 stars, 4 stars. But it's like that cheesy phrase of hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. And I mean, you have some guys, not saying it's everybody, but you have a lot 5-star talents that are deemed busts because they come in and think they can win the starting job or have success just based on pure talent. But, you get to the college level and everybody's just as good as you are, as fast as you are, as strong as you are, et cetera, et cetera. And so I think that's one of the things that these coaches look for, these guys that not only are they talented, but also they have that hard work mentality. And, that's what, I think is a big part of the culture Sam Pittman's brought here. And even Talon said that when we talked to him in our Hog Talk segment was, the blue collar hard work attitude that Sam Pittman has built here. And I think that's what you're seeing. These guys are coming in and working hard. And I think you saw that especially from this offensive line, how much they talked about. They just came in, really went to work, really build that chemistry and things like that. And I think you're starting to see that, like we mentioned, nothing really to complain about on the offensive line from game one. And, talking about the offensive line, it was nice to see week 1 Fernando Carmona, one of those transfers that came in, was named SEC co-offensive lineman of the week, along with a lineman from Texas. So we're back to those codes again. But, that's pretty common here for Arkansas nowadays. But, things like that. So you love to see that. And I think this coaching staff, especially like you said on the defense, is headed in the right direction to kind of build this defense back up. It always seems that Arkansas is one of the schools where you hardly ever get it lined up where you have both a good offense and defense at the same time. It's usually one year you have a really good defense or one year you have a really good offense and the other is just average or, can hold his own a little bit, if you will. But I think we're getting to the point where under Travis Williams and now Petrino back, if the offense can get to what we think it can, there's a chance that you see this team have a really good offense and a really good defense. They can stop some people. I mean, we saw glimpses of that last year. And I think, the problem last year is they're getting so gassed because they're on the field probably 75, 80% of the time compared to the offense. So things like that, it's good to see.
1,000%. I've got high hopes that this year goes well enough that everybody sticks around job-wise and then can really build on some success and some of the culture that seems like it's turned around and shifted in the right direction. If we can continue that trend for several years, that would be nothing but good things, I think, from a recruiting, playing, coaching environment, the whole fan expectation and turnout, fan turnout. That's really kind of the term I'm looking for there. I think all those things will trend in the right direction if this year can at least be good enough that can keep most of these guys around and keep on building what they're working on right now.
Yeah, 100% agree there. We'll jump over to some Arkansas basketball. Not a ton of news here, but the little tidbit we have is kind of big news. Arkansas it's been reported by John Rothstein and several other sources that Arkansas is officially going to play Kansas in an exhibition charity game in Fayetteville with that date and time to be announced. So, that's another high priority matchup or big time matchup, if you will, that Coach Cal set on the schedule with all the other non-conference matchups. Now you've got Kansas along with you're playing Baylor, TCU, Illinois, all non-conference games before the conference schedule starts up. So, national, and can't forget about Michigan and Madison Square Garden in New York. So, Coach Cal has taken that level that Musk got this Arkansas program back to in the national level and just like hitting it with a steroid shot and getting it even higher. And so, that's going to do nothing but good things with recruiting, as long as, we just don't go in these games, get blown out, which I don't think we will. But, you come and have some close, exciting games with some of these high, big-time programs, the blue blood programs that we're scheduling, especially like Kansas. That's going to do a lot for notoriety for the university and, help drawing more recruits that you're going to be playing in these featured matchups that are going to be on, television different nights and on primetime slots.
Yeah, for sure. This one's going to be exciting. I think it's going to feel just like the Purdue matchup from last year, that exhibition kind of charity game, if you will. Everybody expected the starters to only play, the first half. That was not the case. You could tell both teams wanted to win that game, and it felt like a March Madness game in preseason exhibition with nothing on the line except pride. I think this game has a lot of potential to match that or maybe even exceed that environment and hype, if you will. There was a lot of people that made it for that Purdue game, even though it didn't even count. So this one's going to be just as big as that, if not bigger. And I'm excited, especially with the roster that we've got and the coach that we've got, to see what we're able to do. You'll get a good eye test, if you will, even if we don't play as many starters for the entire game, things like that, as we did maybe last year against Purdue. You're still going to get a good eye test of, hey, what's this team built like? What type of offense do we look like we run? Are we, kind of a transition type team predominantly? Or are we able to run plays and not look like we're playing street ball out there as much as maybe some years past? So there's a few things I'll be watching for, even in these early games like that. And that's a tremendous opponent to play to really gauge yourself.
Yeah, I agree. And hopefully, the season will have a different outcome than after that Purdue game, which I think it will. But, other than that, we're not going to dive in too much on that. But that we'll keep you updated once we find out when and what time that game is going to be. We'll keep you guys up to date on that. We'll jump over to Arkansas soccer, where this soccer team keeps rolling in the victories. And their last matchup, Arkansas played Gonzaga. Actually, the same night, Arkansas went down to Little Rock and played UAPB. They got the win here, 4-0, and Kate Doyle, who is a Gonzaga transfer, along with Kelsey Euler, playing against their former team. Well, Kate Doyle got things started for Arkansas 20 minutes into the match, and then she followed that up with her second goal of the match in the 37th minute with a header from Kelsey Euler, the other Gonzaga transfer. So, she came out strong in this one, put up 2 quick goals in the first half, putting Arkansas up 2-0 going into halftime. After half, Arkansas came out, got its third goal of the match off a free kick from Kelsey Euler, with freshman Anaya Robinson scoring from the top of the 6-yard box. And that final goal for Arkansas came in the 56th minute off a corner kick from Avery Wren with midfielder Mackenzie Malum heading it in. Arkansas finished that match with a lead of 25-8 in shots and 6-1 in corner kicks.
Can't beat it, man. That's exactly what you're supposed to do. And it's ironic, that a couple of the players that we stole from that team really, really balled out in this match. So good things, especially to be able to put up another 0 against the opponent. Our defense this year seems even better than they were last year.
Yeah, that's so true. The soccer team has been making noise, and, that's what to be expected from a Kobe Hill soccer team. And, they continued that up on September 1st as they took on Western Kentucky, got an 8-0 win there. And, after this game, the Hawgs currently lead the NCAA with 31 goals through 5 games. And they got this one started early with Ella Riley she opened the scoring for Arkansas in the 13th minute of this match off an assist from Anaya Robinson and Ella Rogers. Ava Tinkersley, she's going to get hers, scored the next goal for Arkansas, her 4th of the season in the 16th minute. Mackenzie Malum netted the 3rd goal off a corner kick from Avery Wren in the 8th minute. Taylor Behrman scored the 4th goal for Arkansas right before half. She was the 17th Hog to score a goal this season. And then Arkansas finished the first half with 20 shots and held Western Kentucky shotless. And Arkansas's next 2 goals in the second half came from Anaya Robinson in the 52nd minute as she was fouled in the penalty box and scored the goal off that penalty kick. 6 minutes later, she netted a deflection inside the 6-yard box to give Arkansas the 6-0 lead. Then you have Bella Field adding the 7th goal for Arkansas off a mistake from the Western Kentucky goalkeeper. And finally, Kate Doyle scored the final goal for Arkansas, and that also extended her scoring streak to 5 matches. So Arkansas finished this match leading in shots 30-3.
That's almost unheard of, man. Like, the offense is doing awesome things, scoring all these goals, but I think it makes it look like the defense is overshadowed, even though the defense is doing tremendous things, preventing shots on goal. And then when there is shots on goal, or I think it's our freshman goalkeeper is just tremendous. So, been a fun year so far, and it's just now starting.
Yeah, 100%. So some stats for you here. The Hogs have outscored opponents 31-3 and have outshot opponents 150-31 throughout the season when we're just 5 games in, which is insane. You have Kate Doyle. She was named SEC Co-Offensive Player of the Week. And then you had Anaya Robinson named SEC Freshman of the Week for their outstanding performances over these past few games. And then you got to talk about a former Razorback in B. Franklin becoming the second Razorback to score a goal in an NWSL match. And, a lot of success there. And then Arkansas finished up ranked number 6 by the United Soccer Coaches and number 9 by Top Drawer Soccer going into this next week with matchups there. We'll jump over to some quick volleyball news as Arkansas took on Sacramento, won that 3-0. Same for Cal Poly. They won 3-1. And volleyball is getting kicked back off, and I think Arkansas has a star player in the Rise that transferred over with a very familiar name in Thurman. Romina Thurman transferred over to Arkansas, daughter of legendary basketball player Scotty Thurman, doing fantastic things. And I think she had a big game the other day with some record-setting kills. But, you love to see the success that they're having there. Any thoughts there before we kind of move on here?
Real quick, she changed her number to a good old number 30. So, like father, like daughter, if you will, rocking the number 30 with the Thurman on the last name. So that's really cool to see. She's doing a great job so far. I think this volleyball team is going to maybe be a little sneaky. They're pretty dang solid. So it's going to be a fun season for them as well.
I was about to say they made a run last year, and I think they're primed to hopefully make another one this year. As we jump over to Arkansas baseball, not a lot of news there. Fall ball is getting back in session. They're going to have some exhibition matches here in the fall as those keep coming and get announced. Guys are back on campus. Some new looks. We were talking about that a little bit before we got started here. Vahiva Loy seemed to cut his hair, you mentioned, and then you have Reese Robinette growing his hair out a little bit from being down in the Cape Cod League. Or no, he's actually in, I think, the New England League.
I think so.
And so, things are getting to pick back up a little bit for this baseball team. These transfers are going to get acclimated to this team and Dave Van Horn. And, it's exciting to see they announced that we're going to be playing in the Globe Life Baseball kind of round robin tournament again in that second weekend where we'll be taking on Kansas State, TCU, and Michigan. So, a lot of purple there. And, those two teams the past 2 years have been the teams that, unfortunately put Arkansas out in their own home regionals. So, hopefully we can come out and, get a little bit of nice revenge there.
Yeah, there's definitely some history between all three of those teams, actually, especially TCU and K-State. But I believe we played Michigan in the Globe Life Classic, whatever it's called, 2 years ago.
I think you're right.
I think we played them 2 years ago. But anyway, so a little bit of history from all those teams, which is good. So I'm excited to see some of those matchups. It's going to be early season. You don't have Hagen Smith anymore. So who are the guys that really step up and come into their own? I think there's some spots. We've talked about it in shows past, but there's definitely some spots where I think guys will be able to step up and fill those roles. And I'm excited to see, how well they do and how far a lot of those guys can take us. I think we've got a very complete team. It's just, how well do our star players and really, the guys that have high expectations, like a Kendall Diggs coming back, can he really, shoulder the load and carry this team and have some guys around him do well as well, like Vahiva Aloy, for example, Nolan Souza. Those guys I think are primed to have good seasons again. There's a lot of talent here for this team to go pretty far.
Yeah, that's so true. You mentioned Hagen Smith. He's having a great start to his career. The other day, his first start, he tossed 3 innings with 4 strikeouts in that first start. So you got to love to see that continuing that success at that next level. And hopefully he flies up through the farm system and makes it to the show pretty soon. But other than that, I think that's all the Razorback news we have, unless you have anything else here, Seth.
I'm good, man.
With that, we'll get ready to start talking Arkansas at Oklahoma State. And we're excited to welcome Calvin from the CGA Tour to the show to help us preview and break down this matchup for this weekend. Welcome in, Calvin. How's it going?
Doing great, guys. How are you doing?
Doing pretty good. I think us over here in Fayetteville are a little bit excited for this matchup. So it's going to be, I think, has the chance to be an electric one.
It sure does. Yeah, there's a couple questions I have for you guys here right off the bat, because I've gotten some comments here on the last couple podcasts that I've recorded. It seems like all the Arkansas fans are just jumping in, killing me left and right here. Hey, we shouldn't be favored. Arkansas is going to run you guys out of the door. You lost to South Alabama, UCF by 50, plus. It was just, crazy, all type of stuff here. Listen, comments can go wild. People don't have to back up what they say. You can make threats online. No one's going to do anything about it, right? All that stuff, yada, yada, yada. But I'm curious from you guys here. Do you think it'll be a close game? We don't have to get right into the predictions of it, but, do you think it'll be a close game either way?
That my answer probably for me would have been a little bit different before the first game of the season. But, I want to say I think it will be a close game. I think it could be a 10 to 7 point game. Just outside looking in, you see the spread right now being anywhere from, that 8 to 7.5, 7 point mark. And I think that probably could get a little closer as we get closer to kickoff.
Yeah, it's kind of my thought too. I'm right there with Caleb. Before week one, I had us kind of being, 14 to 20 point underdogs to you guys, honestly, with the returners that you guys have, the experience that you guys are bringing back, some of the star players y'all have, like Ollie Gordon. I'm not sure we have the experience to match that. I think we have the talent to match that, but I think the experience level is tremendously different between our two teams. And I thought that was going to be one of the difference factors, especially considering it is a road game for us, a home game for you all. After our week one performance, we went 10 out of 10 on our offensive drives. Granted, we were playing an absolute cupcake in UAPB, but we didn't shoot ourselves in the foot, didn't have a lot of mistakes on our offensive line. That was one of our biggest issues last year, is getting behind the chains for holding penalties, false starts, things of that nature, just boneheaded decisions. I think a lot of those decisions have gotten cleaned up. There's a much better culture around our offensive line and quarterback room. So I think that'll help us. However, like I said, I think that experience factor and the fact that it is on the road there in Stillwater is going to be a big time factor in this game for us. And I have it being a 10-point loss. I don't know what the score is going to be. I can't really decide if it's going to be a shootout style game and us losing by 10, or if it's going to be a little bit of a lower, 21 to 31 type scenario. But that's kind of my prediction.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, just kind of curious here what you guys are feeling as well too, because Vegas usually isn't wrong. Usually they're not too far off, right? The books are kind of the books for a reason, all type of stuff here, and I have it kind of 38-28. In my head at least.
Good prediction. I like that.
Yeah, and of course I have Oklahoma State there winning, but by the turns of it. But also just want to give your guys' listeners here some information about Oklahoma State as well too, because beating a team 70-0, there are 11 other guys lined up on the other side of the ball. You're not going to tell me you're running through paper. I've seen some high school football games in Oklahoma where one's a private school, one's a public school, and it doesn't look that great. But you're still not going to score 300, right? It's not like there's no one in front of you at all or anything, or the quarterback's wearing, I guess for you guys maybe it's a green jersey or whatever because you are red already. But you know what I mean? There's certain limitations to it, and I can get into that more. But 2 years ago, we played Arkansas Pine Bluff as well. We also played them at home. We won 63-7. That was a year that we finished the season 7-6. So for me, it was like, okay, you know what? All right, how good's Arkansas Pine Bluff? And it's like, well, we had some quarterback turmoil and a bunch of things didn't go our way, and 7-6 is not really the whole story of it. That's that sounds much better for me to go. hey, I'm going to devalue the crap out of your guys' win. But then again, our quarterback got injured halfway during the season. We beat Texas and Quinn Ewers at home. And then we just literally fell off the face of the earth and decided to stop showing up for games. So, I mean, our quarterback got injured and that was it. So, there's much more to say about that. I do think a win's a win. We played an FCS opponent. You guys might have been talking about this already here and I just missed it. But I think they were good. I don't know. Like that's the big thing. I think that their quarterback was getting D1 offers, and that's what all their fans were saying for South Dakota State Jackrabbits of, hey, Mark Gronowski, he's a mobile quarterback. He can run a little bit. He's got offers to Big Ten schools. Now, Grant, I also want to say here, it's Northwestern. It's not, not saying he got offers to Ohio State or anything, right? But, with that being said, like I want to color it like it is. I could leave out the details and it seems much better than it is, but also want to fill it in there as well too. I just don't know because Mark Gronowski didn't seem like he was all that great. There seemed like they left some points on the board, but also like we had maybe our two best players defensively. It's kind of up in the air, who's the third best, if it's Kendall Daniels or Colin Oliver, but I think Nick Martin is the guy who's going to get most NFL draft attention stuff here at the end of the day. Maybe one of the DBs, but probably not. But with that being said, I mean, he had a pass go literally to him and he dropped it. So that's kind of tough in Martin. And Kendall Daniels had one that he, could have picked off as well too, but didn't. And then we did have one interception. So all that being said here, our defense played pretty good. Definitely let a lot of big plays open. Gundy's quote about that was, we needed to adjust where our eyes are, which to me is more of we didn't see enough tape on them, or they ran some stuff that we didn't see coming because we weren't adjusted and prepared for it. And going up against a Bobby Petrino offense this weekend, that kind of information on the front end of going, this FCS team was 29-0. It's their Super Bowl if they beat us, right? Like we know coming in the door, we got to be ready for them. But we weren't as ready as we should have been, or their offensive coordinator did some things that we didn't see coming. These are the kind of things as an Oklahoma State fan where I'm like, I'd rather keep this all in my head and just tell you guys, hey, we're going to kill you 50-0. But then again, I have to be somewhat logical and go, this stuff from this past game kind of irks me a little bit just because a win's a win. You beat a team by 24 at home opener. They had won 29 in a row, yada, yada. That's great. But like South Dakota State, are they, do they only have, 4 stars comparatively to UAPB, who has only 1 star on the roster, if we're evaluating out of 5. And all of a sudden, is it like, well, hey, UAPB on their best day could never beat South Dakota State? Or is this South Dakota State's an FCS team? They're in South Dakota. They recruit mostly in-state kids, which there's not that many people in South Dakota, period. So that's not really saying anything bad. It's just you recruit where you're at. Oklahoma State, most of our rosters from Oklahoma, Texas area. I assume you guys are very similar there as well, too. Maybe a little Florida mixed in as well because the SEC stuff. But, I'll stop monologuing here and just kind of, let you guys ask me something or go off. But I'm nervous about Saturday, to say it at least. 38-28, I feel good about saying that. That's what I said on my podcast here earlier this week. I'm going to stick to it. But that doesn't mean I don't have some, some spider webs and cobwebs I'm going to be trying to fight through as we see the game go on, especially if we're not off to a hot start.
Yeah, I can see where you're saying that. And, I think I want to say, you were mentioning, thinking about, tape and stuff like that. I feel fairly confident saying, we probably kept Saturday for the most part vanilla. We probably didn't pull out anything, way back in the playbook or anything like that, kind of getting your feet under you type thing. But, I think comparatively, if you think about our team last year, Talon and KJ are similar in some aspects, but they differ very much as a quarterback as a whole. And I think that's going to be the big difference for this team this year is you have a quarterback, again, nothing against KJ, but it is much better about reading defenses and, being able to, stay in the pocket a little longer because, that's the basis of a Bobby Petrino offense. You've got to make those reads because for the most part, there's going to be one wide receiver that's open every play, and you just got to be able to find him in the right timing. And I think that's what goes into a Petrino offense. I mean, do you agree there, Seth?
Yeah, 100%. I think that goes hand in hand with the run game that he tries to run. There's some funky runs sprinkled in there, and then there's a lot of power running, which people forget about in a Bobby Petrino offense because everybody's so, mystified by some of the high flying passes and air raid type attack. He's more balanced than a lot of people give him credit for, though. And our run game is not as bad as I was thinking it might be. I think that was one of the things all offseason that all the coaching staff touted. Our offensive line is the most improved unit out of this entire team, which they had to be. They were horrendous last year. So it's hard to know. Okay, so they're the most improved unit. How improved are we talking? Because you were starting at rock bottom, frankly. So 3 different transfers came in. There's two returners kind of that are the starting 5, if you will, on that unit. But there's a couple guys that are off the bench that are, challenging that starting role as well. So you've got a little bit of depth there, which is helpful. Maybe not as much depth as we'd like, but that unit is better than they used to be. And I think that provides that run game a little bit more spark, which is what Bobby Petrino likes, whether he's running Taylon Green, our quarterback, or we've got a plethora of running backs that can all tote the rock fairly well. And so there's some options there. And I think that's another thing that us as Arkansas fans aren't 100% sure what to expect week in and week out from Taylon's legs. He ran a decent amount at Boise, not just a ton, but he was a touchdown machine with his legs at Boise. Not necessarily a yardage machine. So when a play broke down, in the red zone, he was able to take off and find his way to the pylons. It's hard to know exactly how much Bobby Petrino is going to let him do that, how much they're going to call for that. Nobody's really sure. We didn't see a lot of that in our spring practices and our red-white game because they're trying to save him, if you will, prevent any types of injuries. And I think they were trying to prevent any type of practice film leaks, things of that nature from getting out and just let him be a bit of a surprise with his legs. There's a big play that happened against the UAPB team from last week where he looked like Lamar Jackson out there just juking guys out of their shoes, about a 60-yard touchdown run that he probably, I think it was 35 or 40, but he ran about 80 yards to get there, weaving around a bunch of guys. And I didn't necessarily expect that from him. I knew he was quick and was agile and could run, but that was a very, very explosive run that I wasn't expecting from him. So I'm curious to see where that takes us. I think that provides an element that not a lot of teams might be ready for because they haven't seen a whole lot of it from him at Arkansas, obviously. And, everybody thinks of a Bobby Petrino offense being a lot of passing attack outside of when he had Lamar Jackson, which that's a generational talent that's on a different level. But anyways, I think there's some things that could be an element of surprise that could bode well for the Hogs. But at the same time, I think a lot of it will come down to, can he even hear the play called into him in that stadium with the new helmets, being able to call plays in. It's sometimes hard to hear in these types of games. So I think that'll have a big impact.
Yeah, I heard today you guys were using some pumped in crowd noise, in your practices and stuff like that. And this just might be just me just kind of being a little bit more just really biased. So I always think Boone Pickens is known for being loud. But is that something that is just maybe a national thing now at this point? I mean, I've been an OSU fan like 20 plus years here. So just curious what you guys think.
I think it could be hit or miss. And I think especially, watching and listening to Pittman's press conferences, and I think his big emphasis on, especially focusing on that too, is how close the stadium is to the sidelines. Being known for having one of the shortest, if not the shortest sidelines in college football. I think that's big. So you're going to have the crowd a lot closer to you than you would maybe in other locations around the country. And so I think that was one of his big emphasis that I heard him talk about was, the crowd's going to be extremely close. So we've got to make sure that, we're acclimated, if you will, to being able to hear the helmets, or even, they could be even working on hand signs and we don't know it. But, I think that could be part of, why he's working on that and, pumping in some of that crowd noise. And he even mentioned they did that in some of fall camp as well as some of the practice, just kind of, in the SEC, knowing you're going to be playing in front of some big crowds for a lot of your games, especially some of those away games when I want to think about, maybe not as much this year, but when you go to your LSUs or your, Alabama's, your Ole Misses, there's going to be intense crowd noise. So I think that's the, idea there. Any different thoughts there, Seth?
No, not at all. And I think this is a big time game for both teams, honestly. Arkansas, this would be a huge win for us, especially with it almost being a hot seat year for Sam Pittman. There's some speculation on that from different fans. It could go a lot of different ways, but this would be a big win for him, kind of trying to turn the program back around, get back to how things, were back in the 2021 season, things like that. On the flip side, though, for Oklahoma State, this is just as big of a game with it being, we're SEC opponents, so that's a good thing. Granted, we're not one of the upper echelon SEC opponents. We're realistic here. But you guys have a legitimate shot at winning the Big 12 this year. With the restructuring and everything, I think Utah's decent. There's a couple other teams. Everybody was picking West Virginia, and I think they lost this past weekend. So I think the Big 12 is wide open, and this is going to be a big game for you guys just as much as it is us, especially for, the trajectory of where your season's going to go, and if the Big 12 title really is within reach. So y'all are going to sell it out, I'm sure. It's probably already sold out. I think it was. And there's going to be a lot of fans there just because there's big implications on this game, even though it's not a conference game for either team. There's a lot of implications here. One for us would be a big statement win to kind of get back into, hey, we're able to compete with the upper teams in the country. And then for you guys, this is almost a must win, if you will, to propel you into what I think y'all's Big 12 season can be. I've got you guys picked to win the Big 12. Granted, my brother-in-law is an Oklahoma State fan, so I'm almost biased, even though I'm not an Oklahoma State fan. One of my really good buddies / brother-in-law is a State fan, so this is going to be a fun weekend for us. But anyways, I don't know, man. I just think that crowd factor, the fact that Taylor Green hasn't played in the SEC before, he's fresh to this. I don't want to say fresh to this level of crowd environment, but pretty close. So I think there's going to be, he had some jitters this past week, did pretty well getting over those after, the first couple of possessions. Is he able to kind of emulate that? He'll probably have some jitters in this game, but can he shake that and play well after the first, half a quarter? We'll see. If so, maybe things go well. If not, I think it's going to be that 31-21, 38-28 type scenario for you guys.
Well, I'll take it for sure. A couple things here that I just kind of researched here as well, and you guys might have already said this, but do you know where Sam Pittman was born? Where he grew up?
Grove, Oklahoma.
Yeah, I was going to say. So no matter what, I'm assuming he's got some family who, would of course want to see him win above and beyond. But, maybe in the back of their mind, they went to Oklahoma State or something like that. I know he didn't go to Oklahoma State, of course, went to Pittsburgh State. But still, the other thing here is that Oklahoma State has not beat Arkansas since 1980. I don't think we've played since then, granted. So you guys got the last one as well there is what I'm getting at. So you have the last 5 wins in a row. And draft pick-wise, over the last 5 years, Arkansas has 10 NFL draft picks. Oklahoma State has 9. And then if you go down recruiting rankings as well, too, kind of combined with all of it and really just trying to pile it all together over, who's on the roster, right? If we're just playing rosters, stars were just all lined up from the same website, at least, Arkansas would kill us. I mean, it wouldn't be close. And that's one thing that Gundy's known for, is really getting guys in the door, getting them, hey, you might have come in as a 2 or 3 star, but we're going to go and get drafted, which just seems crazy. Now we've seen it out of the Big 12, and Brock Purdy most recently just kind of go from nothing to something, of course, real quick. But it's one of those things where I'll be really curious just how it breaks down here on Saturday, of course. And how does Ollie Gordon do against, what's known as a decent SEC defense, right? I mean, you guys have, Sam Pittman coming over from Georgia, I know, which is known for their defense. And I think he was an offensive guy, if I remember correctly. But still, either way, he's been around great defenses, right? So I'm really curious to see how it goes, because Big 12 has seemingly this past weekend here, we're playing a little bit of defense the last 2 years. I think Big 12 was, maybe it was kind of just a, kind of mirror effect or something else going on there. But this past weekend here, every single Big 12 team, it seemed like, scored a bunch, or they were West Virginia. So with that being said, I just really curious to see how we do against like the first real opponent, because, if you're asking me how I thought our first game of the year was going to go, I was like, I don't know if we cover the spread. The spread was 10 points. And that's against an FCS opponent at home, first game of the season, playing 1 p.m. So maybe the South Dakota guys are not that used to the heat, whatever. It actually wasn't that hot of a game. But that being said, I was really nervous. There's been games before where if you're an Oklahoma State fan, I'm unfortunately bringing this back up. I've seen the Central Michigan game. I was on the field. Could have probably tripped the guy for that one. Working as an intern. I think my boss would still have loved me while she was firing me, but clearly I did not do that. And there's some other just weird Oklahoma State games as well too that just down the stretch early on in the season, growing up, I've been going to games with my dad, and now of course on my own or during college, but since like 2002. So I've been and that's as far as I can remember back going. I probably went to a couple in 2000 when we moved to Oklahoma, but I just followed the team for so many years. Love what Gundy's done with the place, and how he's coached everyone up. But by the same point, I want to keep Sam Pittman from getting his to a 25-25, record at Arkansas. Right now he's 24-25. So don't want him to get even, at least not against us. We'll take it later on. Heck, if you guys can beat OU, we'll be giving you all thumbs up in the world. But, if you beat Texas, we'll go, we've done that, been there, done that. Good, you guys can follow it up too.
Because we've been there, done that too.
Yeah, that's one of those things that Oklahoma State being known for having a loud fan base, and then kind of a stadium with really tight sidelines, all type of stuff is great. Gunny being known for a man, I'm 40, there's going on around Twitter today. Hey, when you see this logo, what do you think? And I was like, see Oklahoma State, I think you think of Gundy. You might think of T-Boone Pickens. You maybe think of Eddie Sutton if you're a little bit older because he brought Oklahoma State to the Final Four in 2004, and had some great teams there. But I'm thinking you probably think of Gundy at this point. And this is his 20th year at Oklahoma State. And the last 10, every time we played Texas, it seemed like we came out on top. And the few times we didn't, kind of so be it. Last year, Texas beat us in the Big 12 championship with half our team injured. And we really barely deserved to be there in the first place, to be honest, especially after we played UCF the way we did and BYU the week, before the championship game where we got out of Dodge there just barely by the skin of our teeth. But with that being said here, I'm excited. College football's back, we get to see it. NFL's going on right now as we're recording here Thursday night. So, a lot of good things, of course, here, but yeah, just really excited for Saturday.
Yeah. So we actually had a question come in for you, Calvin. Our buddy Austin Farmer over at Razorbackers. He said, Arkansas is probably the most talented team on Oklahoma State's schedule. If State gets the win, do you think they're a lock for the playoffs?
I guess I want to ask you guys, do you think that Arkansas is more talented than K-State or Utah? Talented, sure. But I don't know either way. If that's the consensus, then
so I'll say this just to chime in there. From a recruiting standpoint, yes, we are more talented, I think, especially considering we took Utah's one of their best running backs, if I remember correctly. That's where Jaquinton Jackson came from, transferred to the university, and is our starting running back now. Very, very solid player. Had a tremendous week one. Granted, we weren't playing anybody, but had a tremendous week one. So, Austin just commented on paper. He meant, which that's my thought as well. I think on paper that's probably true, considering Oklahoma and Texas are not in the Big 12 anymore. So I would think on paper that's probably pretty accurate, or at least very close. I think teams like Oklahoma State, like Utah, K-State potentially, those are the ones that are, kind of up there around our tier, I would kind of classify it as. I think that's fair to say. So that is a good question for sure.
Well, but I'll go and answer Austin's question. If the Big 12 gets two teams in, without a doubt, we beat Arkansas, we're in, no matter what. Big 12 is only going to get one team in. That's where I'm like, I still don't know. Because right after Arkansas, we got Tulsa, which who knows how good they are comparatively to the FCS team we played week one. They're definitely not as good as you guys, of course, or anywhere near it. But then after that, we play Utah at home. Then we go to K-State. So to open up the season, we just have 3 out of 4 games are against Power 4 teams, real quick, real fast. And I'm curious how we do.
If y'all make it through that gauntlet,
you
got a really good shot at winning the Big 12 and getting a playoff berth.
And to be honest, I think if we lose to you guys this weekend, I think what will happen is that we'll go down no matter what, because it's just we're favored at home. But if we do lose, we could still beat Utah and K-State and just be fine. The one tough thing about Austin's question, just because I've been trying to figure this out, because I also I host the Big 12 Huddle podcast as well too, covering all the Big 12 teams. And the one thing that's really weird about the schedule this year is that K-State and Arizona had already scheduled a non-conference kind of game like we're doing, home and home, between at the time, at least Pac-12, Big 12. Well, this year it still is a non-conference game. So if either of those teams lose, they have just as good of a shot to end up at the Big 12 championship because they don't really play anyone else besides like K-State plays us. I think Arizona plays KU if I remember correctly, but I don't think they play. I mean, they don't play K-State again, and I don't think they play Utah either. So with that being said, that's just a real big advantage for those two teams in my book. That's really just it doesn't even deserve to be talked about as much as I am right now today because it's all just a bunch of what ifs and mumbo jumbo. But like, also we get down to November 29th, Oklahoma State's playing an away game Black Friday in Colorado. Now Sanders and Hunter, they may be sitting because they're getting ready for the draft, and Colorado's 2 games out of a bowl game or whatever. Who knows? But they also could be playing for Heisman Trophy contention and that type of stuff too, especially if it's kind of like, I know you guys talked about Lamar's, said Lamar's name drop a second ago, especially if it's kind of one of those years where like, I don't think Colorado makes it out of the Big 12 to the championship. They face a very tough schedule, but heck, if it's a Lamar Jackson type of year where he wins the Heisman, I think Travis Hunter could definitely win it then, or Shadur or whatever too. So there's several points throughout the season where I'm like, okay, we face these two, and then we really don't face we got West Virginia at home, Arizona State's our homecoming. We just don't face that many tough teams. We don't have to go to UCF again because last year that was a horrible game for us. I mean, I guess the rain just really couldn't do anything about it. I don't know how that's a deal when we have Ollie Gordon on our team, but maybe it just made us too one-dimensional. But yeah, with all that being said here, I do think we are a lock to get to the Big 12 championship if we beat Arkansas this weekend. I do think that's probably fair enough saying. It just is, how are you, of the top 3 teams in the Big 12, maybe top 4, including Arizona, don't want to dismiss them, but Utah, K-State, Oklahoma State, and Arizona, who are 2 of those 4 going to make it? There's no way in my mind 3 makes it out of, 3 out of 4. I think the SEC could get 4. I think the Big 10 could get 4. Each, but probably not necessarily. It's probably 3 or 4, depending. Penn State looks pretty darn good, so I don't want to count them out. But with all being said, I'm trying to kind of do it all in my brain. There's going to be Boise State or somebody, right? That's 1. And then there's going to be maybe an ACC team or 2. So with all being kind of factored in, I just think there's just no matter what, going to be one Big 12 team. I don't know if we'll be that one Big 12 team is what I'm getting at, so I'd love to give hey, for sure, I have so much confidence, but there's a reason why Alan Bowman didn't play that much at Michigan and then transferred to Oklahoma State. There's a reason why we're in the situation we're in at quarterback. Our O-line seems to be pretty darn good, but run blocking this past weekend wasn't anything to write home about. Ollie Gordon had great stats, but not great looks. And defensively, I think we could have definitely stopped them on some big plays they had. So I'm really excited to see us play an actual Power 4 team, have more of a consensus, have more confidence, or at least more knowledge. I'm not going to say more depression, but I'm going to say, more confidence or more knowledge, right? And leave it at that.
Yeah, I understand where they come from. That makes sense, and that kind of leads right into my next kind of things to talk about, keys for the game, if you will. And, I put, what does Arkansas technically have to do, in quotes, to pull the upset? Because, you guys are ranked 16th, based off how last year went for us. This, like Seth said at the beginning, this is a big game for us. And I think the number one thing that I'm, putting a star by, highlighting, circling, everything is because there's no stopping it. You've got to slow down or limit Ollie Gordon. I think that's number one that I'm, putting on my list, and kind of on the flip side of that for Arkansas, you've got to win the line of scrimmage with our offensive line. We talked about how, they were just atrocious last year. And, that was really a big emphasis of, I think, if we had improved O-line play last year, you might have won 2 to 3 more games. And, and my last one here, and, feel free to enlighten us on these, force Alan Bowman to throw the ball, make him beat you. I think that's, my 3 takeaways. Anything different there, Seth, that you can think of would be your keys to the game?
Well, I completely agree with slowing down Ollie Gordon. I don't think you're going to stop him, but can you slow him down, make his life a little bit harder than it usually is? Um, can you disguise your coverages enough to where, he thinks he's going to be able to hit a hole on the right hand side just based off where we line up, things like that, and then actually be able to, get him for a 2-yard gain or maybe even a loss, get in his mind a little bit to where he's second guessing where he's seeing the holes. That'll be big. But then, making Alan Bowman beat you is going to be a key. I agree with that. But I think where this game could be won or lost, and I know this is obvious football, but like it's going to be turnovers. Can we take care of the ball? Can Oklahoma State take care of the ball? If somebody starts throwing a couple picks or somebody puts the ball on the ground a time or two, I think these teams are evenly matched up well enough, kind of from top to bottom, including special teams even, that a couple turnovers can really be that difference factor of that 10-point. In my mind, I think we're about a 10-point underdog on paper just due to the experience and it being on the road. If we're able to force a few turnovers and not turn the ball over ourselves, that completely erases that margin in my mind and makes this a very tight game that could be, won last minute by either team. So I think that's another key for Arkansas to win in my mind is force 1 or 2 turnovers without having the ball win the turnover margin, essentially. That'll be, I think, a key to us winning. If there's no turnovers, both teams play a clean game, I think the Cowboys pull it off. So to me, that's the one area where I think we could sneak out of there with a win is if we pull off a turnover or 2 and get Alan Bowman to throw a pick or 2, something like that.
Yeah, the way in my mind that you guys beat us, or really anyone beats us, at least right now, is give Alan Bowman all the time in the world to throw the ball. If you know it's a passing down, drop back in coverage. Give him 30 minutes. It won't matter. He's not fast. That's not any secret at all. So he's not going to cut you up for,
He's
5
30.
yards or whatever, every play, right? But you don't have, but you also, okay, maybe you're worried about, him dumping it off to Ollie. That was happened several times past weekend. Trent Rowland, he's another one of our backs here, transferred in as well. And then Sessi Vahalia, excuse me, I'm definitely butchered it no matter what I tried. But he, he's also a guy who, completely made a South Dakota State guy whiff with one of the worst face mask penalties I've ever seen in my life. Just it absolutely was. I mean, the photos from it were really good from AP Press. I'll say it that way if someone wants to look it up. But yeah, just give Bowman all the time to throw, because that offensive line is going to be able to block real well. Their average age of Oklahoma State's offensive line is older than the Oklahoma City Thunder starting lineup last year. So all of them are like 23-year-olds, and the Thunder are all like rookies, except for one dude. But with that being said here, yeah, I just give them all the time in the world, because you're right. It's really hard to do that, though, at the same point. Oklahoma State's going to disguise it. They're not going to just let you know it's a passing down every time. They're definitely going to try to do some halfback draws and have Ollie Gordon out in the flat and use them different ways. We saw this past weekend, too. But Bowman also had his career high, at least at Oklahoma State. I think also at Texas Tech, completion percentage this past weekend. He had 73% here throwing. Now, couple passes were incredible catches by our guys, especially Deshaun Stribling with tipping it up to himself so he'd keep going when he was wide open. But, Bowman's definitely more of the game manager type of guy. So if you are forcing him to throw, give him all the time in the world, drop him back in coverage, you're not going to give up any big plays to his feet at all. And you are going to be able to really just kind of just give us, too much time, right? Eventually, you guys are going to, if you're only rushing 3, you're still going to get to us at some point. You couldn't stand back there for 30 seconds. It just doesn't happen in football. So, with that being said, that's the way I personally would say as an Oklahoma State fan. Would be the keys is give Bowman all the time in the world, and then kind of leave it after that. But really stopping Ollie and dropping back in pass coverage just doesn't seem like it goes hand in hand necessarily. So we'll see what ends up. I mean, I know your head coach and your offense coordinator real well, but we'll see if I know the defense coordinator's name by the end of the Saturday night, right?
He's a pretty cool guy. He's got some pretty neat rap videos and stuff. He really gets into it with the players, and it's been a tremendous recruiter so far. He's kind of coming into his own, that's for sure. But I agree with your takes there. If we can cover the pass game well enough when it is passing downs and you guys don't catch us by surprise on some weird running back screens and things like that. We got to think our secondary is good enough to keep up with your wide receiver core. We'll see, who can have the most big plays and who can limit the turnovers. Those are going to be some of the big keys to me. So it's going to be an exciting game. Like we were saying before, I think this is a big game for both teams. There's a lot of implications. I don't think y'all are going to be overlooking us. We're obviously not overlooking y'all. And it's going to be hard fought. And then there's a lot of implications for it to just be a week 2 matchup with where each of these teams' seasons could go. Not necessarily ours, going to the playoffs, but ours, we need to make a bowl game or better just for our coaching staff. So there's a lot on the line here in my mind. This is actually one of our more winnable games. That's sad to say, but in my mind, it is one of our more winnable games of the season. So I think we need to come in here and at least keep it close, make it a respectable game, and it'll be one of the better ones on Saturday.
Yeah, it's like Seth can attest to this. It's like I've said all offseason. I think this game is a game that could kind of depend on how the rest of our season goes. Like I said, we either need to go in and win the game or lose it close and not just get absolutely blown out to kind of give us and the fans an idea of where this team is at going forward. Because for our schedule, there's not a lot of SEC wins on our schedule from our point of view right now. That could change the more we play if we look better, things like that. But going into the season, Seth and I both said we're looking at maybe 1 to 2 SEC wins. And, that's going to be with teams that have first or second year head coaches in Mississippi State and Auburn.
Yep. It's bleak from time to time being in the SEC, that's for sure. But it is fun. You're playing the best of the best, so you have a good gauge of where you are. And I think, we were talking about it. To us, even though this is not an SEC game, it has that level of competition. So it's a good testament to gauge where you are. And with us, we've got so many new kids, whether it's transfers, freshmen. One of our best running backs, in my opinion. He's kind of number 3 on the depth chart, number 3, number 4. We've got a pretty good stable running back. But Braylon Russell, he's a kid to watch out for. He's probably going to at least get a couple of carries in this game. He's a freshman running back, but he's built like he's a senior. He's 6'3", 250 or something like that. It's pretty ridiculous for a freshman to be that size. So he's not bad at all. Pretty fun kid to watch as a freshman. So somebody like that, it's kind of a good thing to have. But are we able to, actually get in game scenarios where he's usable, or are we 3rd and long every single possession? Those are the things that are going to be keys to the game in my mind. There's a lot of little things like that, staying ahead of the sticks, not getting penalties, playing clean, all those things. And then the big things that are keys are obviously like the turnovers.
Yeah, so we appreciate, Calvin, you joining us. Any other things before we get out of here from you, from Oklahoma State perspective on, this game going into the weekend?
I tell anyone who's going to the game, traveling to it in Stillwater, that it's at least not 100+ degrees out, which is definitely a nice change of pace here compared to August. And to go check out Eskimo Joe's, get some cheese fries, and live it up there. It's the sweet pepper bacon cheese fries are world renowned. So go over to Eskimo Joe's. You can pick up a shirt in Arkansas red if you want to, for all I care. But it'll still say Stillwater, Oklahoma on it, but it won't be an OSU shirt. With that being said, so. Go do that this week, and that'd be my advice if you're going to the game.
Yeah, so if you want to real quick let everybody know where they can find you at if they want to check out some of your previews and any other Oklahoma State news.
Yeah, definitely. So my podcast is the CGA Tour. It's just my name, the Calvin Glenn Alexander Tour. Find me on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts overall. And then, covering Oklahoma State sports. Recently had a new episode every single day this week. And recently did an Oklahoma State preview with a couple of Oklahoma State, bloggers who I kind of think they do the best, just graduated with, who I think all of us are saying about the same things. We're all kind of interested in here this Saturday, but if you want to get that Oklahoma State perspective of exactly what we think as super biased fans, but still, I don't think we're saying we're going to be by 100, and we definitely did not say that. I can tell you that for sure. So that's over at the CGA Tour. If you're a Big 12 fan, the Big 12 Huddle also on YouTube.
Awesome. Yeah. So Arkansas Oklahoma State's going to kick off at 11 a.m. on ABC on Saturday morning. So get out there, check it out. Go check out the CGA tour, get that Oklahoma State perspective. And before we get out of here, don't forget to like and subscribe to the podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcast, Spotify. And thank you for listening to today's episode of Hogs on the Hill.